All right, folks, we're in game. I've got Manir here. He's going to give us a hand breaking down all of these submissions. We have, I think it was 4 submissions plus the 2 of us, so 6 total. Though I think Manir and I are going to step this one out. We'll be grading each other's, but I don't think we'll add them to the official scoreboard. So why don't we start to dive in, and in no particular order, we'll just grab the first one and go through the list of our sort of pros and cons, a little bit of commentary, and then I'll throw up some scores after each set of submissions that we go through. So let's start with let's start with this trio here. And I'll give it a sec for those to load in for you. Let's see. I'm pulling up my score sheet here. This is IDX, I think is how you pronounce his name. IDX's submission. He's calling it the Aztec Advantage 2. And, Manir, did that load in for you yet?
Not quite, but I'll give it another minute.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just work through any multiplayer hiccups here. But I'll intro
There
these.
we go. I see it.
So, IDX's submission, the Advantage 2, has an interesting approach. I think there might have been a little bit of a communication misstep here. He told me that he submitted, I think it was this first one was this was the IFV, and then this was, I think, the fuel tank in the middle. And this was the command post on the end, which has missiles on it, which is very interesting. I feel like the strategy here, in addition to making a platform, was to try to maybe approach every one of the vehicles on the list in some fashion. Because our fuel tank here has a support recovery arm system, and I want to say these missiles are supposed to be anti-air. And the infantry fighting vehicle might double as an anti-tank weapon. So, very interesting approach. What were your initial thoughts?
I'm a big fan of the modular component sitting on the bed of the vehicle. That means that the entire kind of truck and chassis and powertrain is all identical throughout the 3 systems.
Yep.
Which is very cool. I do very much appreciate that. I do like how they have these external power connectors that connect through, even though that's something you can do without by using like the missile hard points to transfer electricity. But I do like the cable. It adds a little bit more of like a analog feel to it, a little bit more of like a kind of a realistic feel to it, because you'd be plugging in cables on a truck like this.
Yeah.
It's very tall. They are very tall vehicles.
They are quite tall, and as I've learned, top-heavy. That's probably one of the disadvantages of having an entire truck platform in addition to a deck or like an exchangeable element in the back. That's, you're riding it above the axle. You're not building it in, so you have a good maybe 3 blocks of additional height there in that interchange platform. But really cool approach. Love the idea, and in my head canon, this truck is something that's maybe already introduced as a platform, or is being is modified from a low cost existing civilian platform into something more like military grade. So there might be some arguments for additional cost reductions there by using an off-the-shelf platform as opposed to a more purpose-built from the ground up 8x8.
Yeah, and definitely one of the disadvantages to this is how high the doors are off the ground.
Yeah,
it's quite a climb to get into the vehicles.
Right. Yes. This brings up a good point of our ingress, egress, and sort of ease of use substat. The use of ladders is lacking here, and this is a good what is it? Is it 3 blocks to a meter? Is that right?
4 to a meter, I believe. I think they're
4 to a
quarter
meter.
of a meter.
So this is a good 6 feet off the ground here. I feel like you've got to jump onto my shoulders to get in. This. I don't think there's actually a way to get in.
There is a handle up there.
Oh, there is. Okay.
You can grab the handle.
Oh, that's clever.
It's a bit finicky. I mean, it's doable, but
okay. I missed
definitely
the handle.
A bit of a challenge.
I missed the handle. That's actually a great catch.
I do like these little slide access equipment racks here.
Yeah, so
very
cool.
simple design, but like super space efficient.
Efficient,
and just
effective.
Adds a little bit of a cool factor.
I love it. Though I did want to mention that if you take a rear hit, and I was doing some testing, there's no like grabbing a weapon and running out the door into combat. Like these become inoperable, and you've got to take the extra step to repair them before you can access some of this equipment.
Right, and that also leads on to if you need to ditch the vehicle quick, you're quite far off the ground. You're going to be, jumping pretty far to get out of the vehicle quick. That
is true. While this isn't far enough to hurt yourself in game, if we look at this from a more real life perspective, a 6-inch drop or 6 foot drop onto concrete would be a little tough with 100-pound packs and equipment on. One more note, I guess, why don't we dive into the variants and we can kind of go into more detail with each of these, probably starting with the infantry fighting vehicle / anti-tank variant. Here, we'll pull it out and can give it kind of a good once-over. A very manual approach to gearing, so no automatic gearbox. Just an up-down arrow, which I appreciate the simplicity of, right? There's no additional, heavy logic there to automatically shift.
Yeah, and it definitely makes plenty of torque, so it's not overly burdened by having to be in the right gear at the right time because it produces tons of power anyways.
That was one of my notes, was this thing has so much power that it really doesn't matter what gear you're in. It may as well just be a forward and reverse because you can just start up a hill in third gear and there's no difference.
Yeah, and if you look underneath, there actually is, I believe, 2 engines in this vehicle, or at least the engine is split into 2 locations. Under the hood and about halfway down, or between the rear axles, there's a second smaller engine.
Oh, I did not
which I think
that.
together create all the power it has. But so potentially survivable if you lose the front engine. You could potentially still drive on the rear engine.
I actually didn't notice that. Where is it? Third engine? I'll have to cross-section this and take a look. That's a great catch. I did have a note about the engine configuration was a quite exotic X design or like plus configuration. So while that might fly in a Stormworks world, it's not necessarily an off-the-shelf having a crankshaft with it's almost more of like a radial.
It's like a radial, but a very extended radial.
Right. Let's see. Okay, so popping inside, it's a great point that there are all the connections that you'd want in this thing. Electrical, it's refuelable easily, which something to know. I think all too often, like we were talking about in Stormworks, you're building something, you're testing a single feature for a few seconds, and then you're despawning it, fixing it, respawning it. So there might not have been a workflow that works out some of those usability kinks, like can you refuel it, can you repower it if its battery dies, those kind of aspects.
Right. Another interesting, I haven't tested it myself, but it seems like, judging by the mechanics of how this module is attached to the vehicle, that it's potentially possible to load and unload the module with the vehicle itself, because there's a winch in there and it's built onto a track. So I think it's possible to actually slide the module off and slide it back on without needing any kind of external equipment.
Yeah, let's test that here in a second. After we go through some of the infantry fighting vehicle features, or probably more like the armament and the fire control system, I want to try to do that because I tried it once. I didn't have great success, but I was on an incline. So one thing I noticed, and let me know if you came to the same conclusion here. The preset camera zoom was so wide that I had a hard time aiming at anything that was without using...
I took a look at the logic in the fire control system. At least when I looked at it, I don't know if it was updated since. It seems like the camera zoom is just disconnected. So this is default camera FOV, which is basically max FOV. And I also
Gotcha.
think, even though it is fitted with a laser rangefinder on the side of the turret, it doesn't. I also don't think it is operable as well. You might have run out of time and not finish the fire control because I don't think the laser rangefinder functions at all.
Gotcha. So maybe some intentions to build in some ballistics, calculations or some fire control system, but yeah, short of time. And that was a huge part of this challenge. Was I was asking everyone to turn around not one submission, but 3 submissions that had intercompatibility within a week. So a big ask. Time was going to be a factor intentionally. Other than that, I mean, as long as you're firing in third person, if we were, while I want to say, the limitations should be restricted to first person, really not a killer, like a make or break item. That's probably going to be a somewhat easy fix to fix the camera system and get that going. I think, overall this seems to be, to me, a very capable vehicle. Probably the larger detriments, I would think, would be maybe just the truck platform, some overland considerations. I don't know if you wanted to comment on some of the off-roadability of this.
Yeah, it has no suspension, which there are pros and cons to not using a suspension. I know generally, at least in my experience, you can get a lot more torque and power out of the non-suspended wheels. So I mean that's one thing. It's kind of low to the ground with no suspension, so the clearance isn't great. It's also a very long vehicle, so it's you could potentially run into issues with scraping it and getting stuck on stuff.
Yep.
It's very fast. Which is great for it. But yeah, the top heaviness also makes it a bit less reliable when going on weird slopes.
Yeah, it definitely is a challenge. I think tipping would be a major consideration. And then there are some minor bugs. I think just with the speed that everyone had to submit these in is something I think IDX actually caught and mentioned. I had written down before that is that the turret can hit in the back, and you can run into some fun physics issues there. I think it's jammed up here.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think I ran into an issue where if you had the troop hatches open, it can also interfere with the gunner's seat position in the turret basket, so you can kind of bump into the doors.
Yeah, I've got a note there too. Depending on the gunner's position, it could be very difficult to exit this vehicle in an emergency situation. That's probably one of the drawbacks of having a floating seat like this instead of a remote command where you're controlling the turret from a static position. Is that depending on where the seat is, your physics collider is somewhat large, and you're dealing with this thing spinning around, which can be a danger.
Yeah, and that's also kind of unfortunately a side effect of Stormworks in general. The seats have very large collision boxes, and the turret rings, you can't really get, in my opinion, even the largest turret ring isn't quite as large as I would like it to be. So you tend to have to, drape screens and seats below the turret ring instead of being able to nestle them up in the turret ring.
Yep.
So I mean, I definitely have sympathy for running into collision issues with the turret seat, but obviously it is, not great to not be able to traverse the gun all the way.
Yeah, and speaking of the turret, or the turret and the seat aspect, that was one of the other design limitations, was that we didn't allow any of the players to use XML edits, and so you couldn't do some more creative workarounds that folks tend to do with XML, like stuffing the seat up in the turret, like combining parts into better missiles. That was a major limitation from the get-go, and I think some of the reasoning behind that was just to make it a fair playing field. Some folks are very adept at XML edits, some are not, and from a judging perspective, it's very difficult to be able to separate some of those aspects. So, wanted to just keep it fair and say, do what you can in game with, those design limitations as a constraint for good design. Let's see, we've got a couple more notes on this, and then we can move to the next. One is just the reduced ammunition capacity. I think you've got 20 shots, if I am not mistaken, and then you're out. That's it.
There is up. It's kind of hard to see, but up above the gunner seat in the turret bustle, there are more ammo canisters.
You're right. Oh,
and in fact, there's a loader's seat right here, nestled above the gunner seat that lets the loader.
I noticed that.
Yeah, pick up ammo, and I've actually got a torch in my hand, so I can't do it. But yeah, you can go check that out.
You're
it's
right,
a nice touch, I think.
I'm so glad that you're judging this and brought that up. I would not have noticed that. Wow, yeah, you're right. A whole separate seat. I just assumed that there was just empty bulk or some kind of some stuff up there. I guess I hadn't dived in deep enough to notice. You're right. There's a surprisingly decent amount of ammunition back here.
Yeah, having made kind of recently some tanks on my own, it's something that I always look into and how people get around how cramped turrets can be, because it's not easy. It's not as easy as I think a lot of people think to fit, a gunner's seat and a loader's seat and the accompanying like gunner's targeting screen plus extra ammo plus space for the turret to kind of move and the gun to elevate and depress. Yep. And so I'm always very interested in seeing how people work around a cramped turret space. And I think his design is very simple, but I think perfectly adequate, especially with that little loader seat up there. It's
absolutely, and you can fit a loader while you've got the gunner, manning the gun and firing. That looks perfect. So I would say, I guess with that known, probably a minimum crew of 3 to operate this in combat. Driver, gunner, loader.
Yeah, seems to be. That is, it's like a pretty standard vehicle layout, having a dedicated loader, especially without an auto-loading system. But, I mean, auto-loader systems, I think, are a bit of a luxury in some cases, so it's not that big of a detriment to have a dedicated loader.
Yeah, not at all. And that was another factor here was cost considerations. So for the right customer, they would, potentially prefer a crew member being lower cost, maybe even more reliable than an autoloader. That would add additional costs and systems to this vehicle. More to break, too. Let's disconnect this thing and see if we can roll it off and roll back on. I'm not sure if a turret facing right will be a problem, but I guess we can see.
Yeah, let's see what happens. If I click disconnect, oh,
this is fun. This thing's fun.
That is actually very impressive of a that was all automated. One button and the whole thing slides.
If I drive this forward a little bit, let's pretend that I'm like doing a lap here.
There is a winch cable still connected.
I'm dragging the winch. See if you can grab that for me. Good catch.
So yeah, that was I'm still holding a torch. I forgot what the default key is to drop a tool.
Backspace.
Backspace. Oh yeah, look at that. Thank you. So if I disconnect the winch.
Yep. All right.
And is there anywhere to secure the winch? That's the question. There should be ideally there would be a little pro tip for designers is whenever you use winches, always have extra rope anchor points around just to allow you to tie off
and we have,
winch cables.
Did you see that top of a tidal wave coming through?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go. Here's some rope anchors by the back. Okay, cool. Secured. So that works.
Okay. That works.
Yeah, very cool.
If I slowly back this up, probably my only complaint with the gearing in this is that with such a powerful engine, the gearing is still quite high. So even at low speeds, you can easily burn the tires out in 6x6 gear, and so it's a little bit to finesse it at slow speeds. It wants to really just haul ass. Okay, I'm gonna put this in park. Did I get that close enough to reconnect there?
It might be. I'll be interested. The winch might finish the job.
Oh yeah. Okay. Great. And I like this extra button that says. There's a light that says winch error indicator. Ignore if the rope is disconnected. Error correction. Press if error is on. I really love some documentation around what the hell is happening here, and what a winch error could be. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. So maybe it almost has to be further away to.
Yeah, it might have to be a little bit further away
to give the time for the carousel to like move forward.
Yeah,
see if
seems to be.
If I can pull this a little forward, we might have to disconnect that winch.
Yeah. Let me. All right, winch is disconnected.
All right, maybe I'll do it like one truck length, something like that. We'll see if that's enough.
Yeah, let's try that out.
I'll put it back in park. I think that'll do the trick. Maybe we were just a little close. Maybe I almost have to back up.
The winch. Maybe. Oh yeah, maybe the winch won't operate until it's. Yeah, so maybe try backing in.
Until it's close enough. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not. I should have. Oh, there we go. Connection is successful.
Okay.
Now, is the winch running in? It doesn't look like it. Maybe I'll click error correction.
Yeah, dude.
Let me just
No idea what the
unclick
error
the.
correction-
Okay, I just unclicked the connect module button, and that should do the trick. Okay.
Oh my goodness. That was flawless.
Nice. That was great.
That really works. You know, I love. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I love that design. Having it from a real world scenario, not needing a dedicated like engineering vehicle with a crane or anything like that to mount the pods is fantastic. Because I mean, theoretically, if this kind of gunner pod had its own power supply at all, it could just turn into like a mobile bunker. You could just drop this thing off somewhere, and it just turns into a little fighting position.
Yeah, I was thinking that you could almost like mobile bunker. In the case of the fuel canister or the fuel tank, having a mobile fuel, you can just drop and use as a resupply point. Love that.
Yeah, you could even build maybe a small generator into the fuel pod, so that you can drop that somewhere, turn it on into like a generator with a 14,000 liter tank or whatever it is, and then plug other pods into it. You can make a little mobile base by just dropping off these pods.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the whole idea is brilliant, and the fact that it can do it by itself, no extra assistance, no cranes, nothing like that. It can drop and pull back up. Really cool, innovative design. Even if top heavy and it has it comes with some compromises. Really interesting approach.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, okay, that was probably, I think we almost talked 10, 12 minutes on the first one. So maybe for the sake of time, we'll go a little faster through these next two and just talk about some high-level aspects of them.
Yeah, I know this fuel vehicle has a kind of a boom arm that moves out, which I actually quite like. It's very simple, but I like the mechanism for it kind of deploying.
Yeah, it's a nice compact mechanism. My only caveat, I think, is, and I haven't tested it, would be how much weight it can carry, since I think it's reliant on, it looks like some pistons. I haven't checked to see if that's a small pivot. It is a compact pivot, okay. So, might have some limitations flipping something heavy, but might be fine for like a lightweight vehicle.
Yeah, it has good reach too, I think, because you can pull up next to right up next to something and have a winch basically over it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the fact that it's basically like a bonus addition to a fuel carrier that already has, I think, I noted 14,000 units. Yeah,
I believe that was what the capacity was.
It's got more than enough capacity, and you get a support arm to boot. Seems like a nice package, and it's all very simple too. Like the systems that are involved here, very low cost from a parts perspective, using small pumps, very few Lua blocks or computers, maybe even no Lua blocks. I haven't actually dived into the controllers on this, but you wouldn't need much.
Yeah, for sure.
And then let's take a look at this last one here. This is, it looks like it's truly like a mobile outpost. It almost reminds me of like Command and Conquer, where like, or like StarCraft, where like your outpost is also firing missiles.
Right.
But I like the addition. I'll use this tether to actually get up inside here.
Yeah, I did initially think this was intended as an anti-air vehicle specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, saying it's a mobile command post also makes a lot of sense. Especially given a couple beds.
Nice, it's got the, that's right, I think IDX hit me up earlier and asked if he could put in the jammer.
Yeah.
So jamming capability, some map capability, plenty of, I think, features here. Yeah, comms. I mean, it's got everything you'd want in a small expeditionary command post.
Yeah, I do notice that there are 3 seats, but only 2 beds. But that's, I guess, excusable in that you'd never have everyone sleeping at once, right? You'd always have at least one guy on watch.
Oh, that's a fair point. That's a good point. I did have a chance to test these missiles, both against air and land targets. Probably better for stationary or slow-moving targets. They had a hard time tracking, but I like the addition. It's certainly fun. It adds flavor. They're a little...
Yeah. It has very touchy controls on the aimer. I know it's...
Very touchy, yeah. But I think of it as a nice, like, it's a nice bonus, right? You know, maybe they're effective, maybe not, but they do help provide a little bit of teeth. So, you know, if you had this thing dropped in the open, somebody might think twice about approaching it, even if it wasn't as effective on paper. Great. No, I think that's great. Yeah, I really like this design. I didn't find any, you know, major flaws. Nothing that was broken. It has all the equipables and, you know, refill and anchor points and everything like that. And the drop and pickup system works pretty much flawlessly. Did you have any final comments?
I don't think so. I just generally it has the same advantages as other system. I really like that it's modular, that you can slide it onto the same truck chassis, and I especially like that it can do it on its own. But yeah, it's a pretty good. It shows this lineup especially shows the advantage of reusing a common chassis because it makes the overall system design a lot faster.
Yeah, and you know, from a mission standpoint, if this needed to accommodate other roles, I imagine it'd be fairly easy to build those modules and swap them on and off an existing platform that was already fielded. You wouldn't really need major modification or really.
Yeah, that's true. As long as you had a track, like a little truck bed capable, you could load these pods on just about any other kind of vehicle. You can put it on train carts. You can put it on, I don't know, ships perhaps, and you can load these things onto it. You're not necessarily locked into this this truck chassis.
Right. Yeah, you're not married to the platform. So I think, you know, from a configurability or adaptability standpoint, I'd say it's a fairly high approach rather than a more dedicated, like manufactured platform.
Yep.
All right, let's pull this in, and we will pop to the next. We're really diving in deep here. I think we're gonna do this guy next. So this is, let me pull my little chart up. This is Petree's stretchable light armored platform, the SLAP. So, true to its name, you stretch it and condense it as needed to fulfill the role. In my headspace, you know, there's almost like modularity per axle, where you can just
like segmented.
Yeah, exactly, segmented with, like, you know, 35 bolts around the center or the edge points, and you just bolt it on, or, you know, cut it in half, move it back, throw a shaft in between, and there you are. So I'm gonna pop in this. I think this is the troop carrier.
Oh,
go ahead.
No, my mistake. I do like this ramp. It's something I kind of regret using doors on my own system, given, like, I think this ramp is very simple, but you know, it goes all the way to the ground. It's easy to walk up. I like the ramp.
Yep, I totally agree. Though I do I do want to mention that it doesn't always close, and I think it could be a physics level thing. That I think that's the bigger difference, is if your physics is turned low. Sometimes these bind. It looks like it's working fine now, but I see the approach. It was a double compact pivot mechanism, where a compact pivot was driving another compact pivot to go more than that 90-degree rotate.
Yep. It's obviously very precisely kind of tuned because it goes exactly to the ground.
Yeah,
you don't have to jump or anything.
I had a different approach for a very similar mechanism, but it did require more logic, using a velocity pivot. And then having a controller time it or do something along those lines. No, that seems to work fine. So maybe it was just my settings being on low physics. Plenty of space in here from a crew, or from a transport perspective. Dang, how many? Actually, I haven't counted this out. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that right? 9 on this side. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You get all a shitload of people in here.
Yeah, it looks like 14 troop seats plus a driver, and an A driver, plus this this platform here, which could be potentially a like a commander's dedicated standing position.
Yep.
To look out the top hatch.
I love these the submissions that have included some kind of way to elevate like a commander, like you're saying. Really fun and just like a clever little addition. Since visibility is sometimes very limited through these compartments, if we were to lock it to like a first-person view.
Yeah, that being said, this vehicle, like the last one, has a bit of like a truck design to it, as opposed to more of a buttoned-up armored vehicle. So you have full windscreens, really good visibility, not relying on looking through cameras.
Yep. Which, you know, like with any decision like that, there comes with some compromise. So your situational awareness is vastly increased in visibility, but you know, of course, you're more vulnerable, and you might not be stopping. You're not putting as much material between you and, and a potential round coming in.
Yeah, and you don't have a built-in infrared capability with windshields unless you have a dedicated infrared camera, which I don't believe this truck has. So that's another compromise you have.
Right. Yeah. So night fighting, night movement, and then of course zooming. You're limited to the what do they call it, Mark 1 eyeball.
Oh yeah. When it comes to off-road for this truck, it seems fully capable. I do find the turning radius to be quite wide. It can be difficult to make super tight turns. This short, wheelbase vehicle is not as bad, but once we get into the longer variations, the turning radius can be quite wide.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. Once you stretch the slap, it's it comes with some drawbacks there. But I mean, a very interesting approach. I turned down my wind sound. Oh my goodness, environment. There we go. There we go. That's better. One sec.
Nice.
Okay, we're back. Interesting choice, since we're mentioning turning radius, interesting choice to have the first two axles turn and the last one be a not turning, or like a static axle. That does change across the different stretchable variants. So, from a while not different in Stormworks, you would be looking at different linkages and a different suspension configuration per variant. So there are some
and I do believe when I was taking a close look at the suspension, it seems like every variant has differently tuned suspension, because it's generally, I think, a bit stiffer on the rear than it is on the front, and that is more exaggerated on the longer vehicles, especially like the bulk carrier that has a center of gravity pretty a lot further back than the smaller variant, so it has stiffer rear suspension than front suspension, which is fine. I do appreciate a good suspension tune, so that it is accommodating its configuration.
Yeah, that is a good point. And this performs very well. Like overall, like its overland capability, it has a very short, stubby nose. It's very hard to damage itself, even traveling quickly over rough terrain. That's not always the case across all of these submissions.
Right. Yeah, it does have a very tall front nose, so it can go right up against large rocks and cliffs without basically beaching its front wheels or anything.
So this has a amphibious capability, and I want to test that. I've dived the others into water. Let's see if we can. I wonder if we should move locales to make that a little easier to test for these upcoming. Let's do that real quick.
Okay.
I'm gonna suck these back up, and let's move over to. What do you think? The multiplayer base, maybe, with the two runways.
Yeah. Which one? Where was it?
I want to say it's kind of southeast.
Oh, I think I see it. Yeah, I see it.
Pop over there. That'll give us, some hills and terrain to drive over, but also, let's see if I can open this up. Also, some means of testing some of the water capabilities of these. So that's probably something else to discuss as well. Like you have amphibious capability of the lightest weight slap. But then you lose it across the others, which sensible. But then you're talking about drivetrain reconfigurations, so maybe not the most modular, from a cost standpoint or from a manufacturing standpoint.
Yeah, there is seemingly a good amount of compromises between the different systems, as well as the radar system has its own support legs that are add-ons that the other ones don't. Which it makes it slightly less modular, slightly more specialized. But a lot of these little the amphibious capability is not a requirement for the contest.
It's not, yeah.
But it is like a nice feature to see working. And I myself did not test the amphibious of this yet, so we'll see what happens.
Let's take a look. I'm just gonna dive it right in. Nothing gentle about this. Reveal any weaknesses from the start.
All right, well, it definitely floats.
Mode. Yep, certainly floats. And it seems to work well.
I wonder, does it use differential thrust for steering, or does it have fins somewhere?
That's a great question. I might be interested in diving into the logic and seeing. I do notice that it's got, it is using electric motors for its propelling thrust.
That's good. And anytime you use electric motors, especially for like specialty modes like this, I always want to make sure that it is power positive, which it is under a heavy throttle like you're doing now. The engine is generating enough power to keep the batteries fed even when running two electric motors, which is good.
That's a great point.
I'm going to suspect, although we might have to take a closer look, I'm going to suspect it uses differential thrust for steering. It definitely seems to be agile enough, like you're steering quite capably.
Yeah, I don't see like an exposed, any kind of exposed fins or anything, so you might be right. Let's try backwards real fast. It's something that is not always factored in. So going back,
it's moving quite quick.
Yeah, it goes back fine, though I am turning, and it doesn't look like it's... So
okay, so the differential system might not work in reverse.
I think you're right. Let's try to pop up on that beachhead there and see if it can climb up. It looks like the one challenge with this is swim mode turns off the wheels, the power to the tires, so you might have to do like a tricky dance of slapping that mode button on and timing it properly so you get that wheel power back on the land.
All right. This is another advantage of its kind of tall nose, and it does seem to be a bit back heavy, which means the nose sits up high, which is exactly what you want for this.
So I will have to swap it back to swim out. That wasn't too bad at all, really.
Yeah, that was quite good.
Awesome. Well, let's pop back and we'll see. I don't know if I can get back over this. Maybe
that might be a little bit too extreme.
We might have to teleport back and yeah, let's do that. Let's teleport back and we'll look at the next variant here.
All right.
Turn that off there. I'll just travel back to that. All right. So we're taking a look at the radar now. This is one of the most fun ones to me, I think. This giant radar array, I think, let me pop up in here. We'll get it pulled out of the hangar. The, like, just the spectacle of setting this up, like, where the engine ramps up a little bit, it puts the arms down slowly, and then raises this giant mast. It's so fun.
It is very cool. I did make the mistake my first time of erecting the mast in the hangar, and it does not fit, I learned, in the hangar.
So go ahead.
Go ahead and hit that erect button.
Yeah. I really love this.
Interesting that it uses little wedge blocks on the end of its stabilizer arms instead of friction blocks. It seems fully capable of properly supporting the system, so it's not that big of a deal, but...
That's a good point. Yeah, interesting approach on that. And it just kind of like flawlessly opens up and does a little bit of a flop, a little back and forth wobble, and then you're set up.
And then switching on the radar system. There he goes, and it's spinning.
And it seems to work. I haven't, I didn't go as deep as setting up, mock targets and really detecting, accuracy of what was showing up. But I'm going to trust here that, bugs could get worked out if there was an issue.
Yeah, it is tracking that boat out there, so...
Yeah, it does seem to be working. Would love to see some documentation paired with this, even if it's an off-the-shelf system. Have a better idea of what kind of usability there is, but...
Yeah, it does seem to be strictly a surveillance system, which is, totally fine. I don't know if there's any kind of extended capabilities of like outputting any of that targeting data to other systems or whatnot, but it seems to be at least functional as a surveillance system.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that would be... I think that would really take it to the next level, would be some cross-functionality with other systems or ways to output target data to a radio or something like that. I haven't tested to see if it can do that. That's probably something we should look at. Does this have a couple radio comms on it?
Yeah, it looks like back here at the radar station there's a voice frequency and a push-to-talk system with a speaker microphone, so you can at least do radio, what would you say, air traffic control or
right,
kind of intercept stuff working on the radar back here.
Let's see, from a drivability, so why don't we turn the system off and stow it? That's a good test too. See, I don't know if I actually tested to see if it folds back up properly, but it seems to.
Yeah, it does seem to.
The dish stopped at exactly where it started for stowage, so that'd probably be my only comment if it didn't have a means of stopping the dish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to work fine. So this becomes an 8x8. Loses its amphibious capability, but in this case, with the rear steering, I'd say this turns pretty tight. I don't know if you could go more on a dime than that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I know, at least in my testing, I got the feeling that the steering was a bit sluggish. Not necessarily, I guess not terrible, but it was a little bit, especially when off-roading, you couldn't get quite the quick response of the turning. But
I can see that.
I think as a radar system, I think it's more than good. It's not, you don't really need to be doing too much mountain climbing with a system like this. But
yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it seems very capable from if you did need to get to a mountaintop, and it, gradually, and you were well supported and all that, it seems like it could certainly do it. Put itself into a specific location and just kind of deploy and sit there.
Yeah.
Now, there was one thing I wanted to ask if you found too. I couldn't find a way to refuel the slap, these variants.
That is actually something I didn't think about. That is a good point. I don't... On a quick look here, I don't see a refueling port.
I couldn't find one. Maybe just a small oversight. Easy to add, but critical nonetheless.
Yeah, especially interesting given the third design is a bulk fuel carrier, I believe.
Yep. Which it has every way of... It has means of pumping out of its tank, but I couldn't find a way to actually refuel the vehicle's tank. Ooh. Took a nose hit there.
Yeah. That's just a buff out that scratch.
We'll just buff out those logic components that are devastated in there. Yeah, I've lost control. Must be a good amount of logic in the nose there. Some driving logic at least.
Yeah, the steering seems to be jammed up.
Is there a
repair tool? That is a good question. I see fire extinguishers.
Plenty
med
for
kits.
fire. Well, that's probably a good note, a good test.
Something to also note is when the radar is stowed, the roof hatch doesn't work.
Better not catch fire from the back. I guess.
Yeah.
So that's probably a note. Is
I will let that go park itself.
Yeah, that'll just do its thing. Just making sure we have all the standard equipment in order to repair. Torches. Especially handy.
Yeah, that is, I think, something that I had also neglected on my system is a repair tool. But,
Easy to add, not a
yeah.
huge concern. So this is pretty cool. I love the stowed, all these compartments that we find in these things, stowed packages, you know, covers.
Yeah, it
and all
comes
that.
with some hoses, electrical cable. Very
Let's
nice.
see. And we have 2 tanks for, yeah, so around 14,000 units. Plenty.
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised how consistent a lot of the fuel capacities were with all the vehicles in the lineup. A lot of them hovered around that amount, give or take like 1,000 or 2.
Can you walk past me while I'm in this hallway?
Let's see. Yeah,
I guess you can clip through me.
Yeah, I guess there's no collision.
Something about this death hallway is there.
It does seem like kind of a inefficient use of space.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the alternative would be having one large fuel tank, but then you'd have kind of like an off-balance center of gravity if you had like the entire tank on the right or the entire tank on the left.
Yeah, so some trade-offs there.
There is actually a repair torch in this vehicle, though.
Oh, interesting.
I guess it is
like
a more
support.
engineering-centric vehicle.
Yeah. You're not wrong that it gets a little bulky by the 5th axle.
Yeah.
Let's take it on a little like course here and see. I don't remember this having any particular challenge, even with that 14,000 units of fuel. The additional axle provides extra traction and cost, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think that's, you know, it's going over pretty quick for weighing as much as it does. I would argue that if you're going to have a 10-wheel carrier like this, I would close that hallway gap, fill it with more fuel, and want to see more like 20,000 units of fuel.
Mm. Yeah, you don't even at that point really need the rear access. You could, if you needed to, you could just put like a door access on the front, or just use the roof hatch and add a ladder, and just completely get rid of all the hallway and the rear access.
Yeah, agreed. Especially since, you know, as a field carrier, you're not as worried about survivability or, you know, combat performance.
Right.
You get away with a center body hatch or even a door on the very side. This thing's going to be rear echelon. You know, going back and forth, you're not going to really put it in danger, ideally. Yeah, it seems plenty capable from an overland perspective.
Yeah, it seems to have plenty of power too. It's quite quick. Most of the vehicles so far in this competition have been actually surprisingly fast.
Yeah, they've got plenty of power. I think probably the one thing worth commenting is just that you know, with that power does come higher fuel usage.
Right.
You know, that being said, I think the slap in particular was one of the lowest idling of the lot, so it's barely sipping fuel here when it's standing still. And it's
The other question is it power positive or power negative? It seems, I don't know whether it's bugged on my side, but it looks like the power level is not moving at all. So I don't know whether it's exactly power neutral, or whether you can see something different. I don't know.
Could you imagine if that was just hooked up to a just like a constant?
Yeah.
It just always shows that it's fully powered. Well, I really like the slap design. I think it's a unique take on this approach. You know, just slap on more length. Just take it off,
Yeah.
put it on.
Yeah, I think something you were saying before. If you were to get rid of the hallway, you could also potentially remove an entire axle worth of space and go with an 8-wheel design and have the same amount of fuel capacity if you get rid of the hallway. But then, you know, you lose the kind of common rear access and, you know, maybe some of this equipment space and whatnot. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I imagine at least in the head canon that's kind of developing, that you're cutting this thing down the middle and extending it from the center rather than the back or the front.
right.
So maybe there's a low-cost tunnel component like we were talking about. that has an axle built in and everything, and you're just tying it in and growing it out. All right, well, on to the next. We got a thorough examination of.
Yep.
Got the radar just kind of crawling back there. All right, I think let's look at our boxer. Oh wait, you know what? Let me despawn some vehicles first, and I'll respawn that. Let's just clean them up.
It's actually been running quite well.
Yeah, surprisingly well for having all of these things spawned in. Okay, so next up we have it's Phil's boxer type modular brick, which I've been calling the BMB. Very traditional, I think, from a an 8x8 standpoint. Pulls a lot of cues from what is it? Not a BMP. What's the like the Russian equivalent of the 8x8s of this kind of size?
There are BTRs.
BTRs.
Usually they're wheeled vehicles.
Yep. The hatch, absolutely, like the small, tiny, like hatch on both sides, definitely reminds me of a BTR.
Oh yeah, big time. That's kind of one of the characteristics of the BTRs in this vehicle, where the access is on the sides instead of on the rear, which is, you know, your kind of more stereotypical armored vehicles.
Yep. Now I don't know if it has a. I'll have to check. I think the engine.
Oh, I think it does have a ramp actually at the back.
How does it for the?
I believe so. For
you're right.
or for the infantry carrier. Yep.
And I think one of my notes was that you couldn't access the ramp from the outside.
Right.
Just like a BTR, very difficult to enter and exit. You kind of have to finesse it. Let's see if I can find that hatch button. I remember it was around. Oh, here it is. It's just down here. Nice. Clean way to do a hatch, though. Just a robotic pivot. I wonder how they got the extra degrees out of that.
Yeah, it probably
spawn sideways, you think, and then
probably spawn sideways. It is also using a wedge, a 4-long wedge instead of like a flat squares, to give it a little bit of extra slope as well, given that the top edge is sloped. One thing that might not be immediately apparent from the outside is that these are modularly assembled as well, just like the first ones we looked at. These back kind of pods are all built onto the same chassis, which gives it its different missions.
Yeah, and very cleanly. Like while there's no, easy mechanism, I believe, to attach and reattach without some means of like crane or assist. It just blends right in, just edge to edge.
Yeah, it's like completely seamless. You wouldn't think just looking at it at a glance that it has a modular rear load.
And I think that what that forms in my mind is that these are probably not meant to be like on the fly swapped as much as they might be like a quick mission turn, like we were talking about, like that 5 hours, that few hours, between missions. You could park this in a bay, have it pulled off, have a new mission package put on, but you wouldn't be necessarily doing that in the field.
Right. Yeah. As far as I can tell, that is a good assessment.
Why don't we jump in this, close it up, and we'll take it for a ride. I'll let you drive this time. I'll bunk it back here. I'll pop into the gunner's seat here.
Yeah. So this vehicle has also a hatch you can open and slide the seat up and get a better view, at least for the driver.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That. I think you can do it on this side too. Let's see if I can open the commander hatch. And let's see, crows, aim, radio. It's on the seat button. Maybe you just have to stand.
Yeah, that one might not necessarily be motorized.
I don't see anything that's motorized like this one. Unless I'm missing.
I gotta disable the parking brake.
Crows. So we're gonna. I'm curious what crows stands for. Is that a term that you're aware of?
Yeah, I believe it's Crew Remote Operated Weapon System.
Okay.
So it's basically just a remote turret.
Understood. Okay.
Let me see. Let me remind myself how to shift. Oh, right. Up. Okay, we're in drive.
Does have a zoom. Looks like it has a laser. Some indication of range. And I take it on the upper right. That must be ammunition. Oh, gosh, it's IR functionality. Oh, and toggleable buttons on the screen. I mean, it's a really nice touch.
It does have a manual transmission with, I think, 6 gears, or let me see, 7 gears, 7-gear manual transmission.
Which, you know, very simple, very usable. I appreciate the reduction in logic components and that space that you're afforded. Like some of the others, this has a very short nose, so overland capability very good. Not much to hit up front, and then this particular unit, I believe all of them do, the BMBs, have that openable front hood for quick repair and access. Kind of a fun touch.
Yeah, I actually never even looked at that, the openable front hatch.
Let's take a look at that feature. What are some of my notes? Now that you're driving, I've got a chance to read off some notes. For at least the Recon variants, we're looking at the IFV right now, but the Recon variants, just on the gunners aspects, a little sensitive with that aiming. No change in sensitivity as you aim, so when you're zoomed in, you really have to tap to kind of get on target. But not a big deal, you know, especially for just light armament, short range kind of thing.
Yeah, the off-road capability is quite good. The suspension is pretty tuned. The dampening is maybe a little bit low. It does kind of bottom out on kind of heavy drops, but overall not too bad. The steering, I'm not sure if the steering, I believe, has some kind of computer control to it. I don't think it's just like a pure analog steering, because there seems to be a slight maybe delay. Oh, I think I just busted one of the wheels.
Okay, it's a good test.
But there seems to be some kind of, I think, computer control. I also think broke the axle. Oh, I've really done it in
here. Well, great test to see if it's well equipped, and it looks like it is. I've got our torch right here. Let me see if I can drop this cable. Grab a torch. Can we repair from the inside? Maybe we'll get lucky. I'll just exit here. There's that transaxle. Oh, yeah, that's right. This one had some cleverly placed rope and other compartments underneath the wheel wells.
Right. Yeah, that is very useful. Having a good number of equipment stashes around is always useful. I constantly find myself carrying a tool and not having a.
Oh! I opened up the engine hood. Some physics shenanigans there.
Yeah, some kind of physics issue going on. I don't think that's the fault of the vehicle.
No. I've worked that fine several times. It must have just been either exactly how it was sitting or what. Oh no. Okay. Well, we'll move on to the next. That's a good a good moment to hop to the next variant. So I think we have, let's see, it was Recon and Fuel was next. And, you know, I think it's a cool opportunity to show off, with maybe the Fuel, show off these detachable rear pods here. If I can.
Right, yeah, I think there's a 2-step detachment process, and they are labeled.
Yeah, I'll pull this out a little bit, and we'll actuate that. I think it starts. We'll break off, and then you gear up. Okay. So if I pop this here, we'll just park it for a hot sec. Well, let's see if we can detach this. And we're not using a crane, so I'm not sure if this is like the proper method. There's a release step 1, and then hit that release step 2 for us here, and we'll see how that works.
Yeah, step 2. It's back here, I believe. I think the step 2 location might be. Oh, I found it. It's, I think, in a different spot for each module, or maybe a slightly different spot. But okay, it is disconnected. So maybe if you want to drive forward a little bit to see if it'll kind of shake loose.
That's one of the tricky aspects of this is getting it detached can be troublesome.
Yeah, it does look like it has 4 lift points, so probably intended to be lifted with a crane. or some kind of small lift. The modules aren't very big, so I don't think it'll take too much heavy equipment to get it off, but it might need some kind of specialized equipment.
Maybe a dedicated modular, or maybe a modularized crane would be a perfect addition to this set. I'm not able to pop it off. I wonder if it's close enough to be able to re-engage itself, or if there's no hope. I haven't actually tried to see if it can pull back on. No kidding. Did it just do it? It totally
looks
did.
like it did. I think I might be a little bit stuck. Oh no, I'm good. I'm good. All right, that connected really well.
I mean, I think this.
Yeah, it is. I think like the most compact design out of everything.
Yep.
These are, I think, the smallest of the vehicles.
And it feels it. You know, the quarters are very cramped. The transitions between the modular, the modular back aspect and the front, what do you call it, like a cabin, forward cabin.
Yep.
Very tight, but it shows. It's a very compact design. I think I would just worry about in combat, or if there was a fire, you could get trapped in one spot or the other. But overall, really interesting approach to the modular, like, deck aspect or package.
And on this particular model, it's mostly functions like an observation post. We have a camera with zoom. It's on a mast. It raises up. There's not necessarily anything too overly complex back here, but a camera on a mast. Also has a laser pointer, which does work. You get different wavelengths, so you can use this as target designation theoretically. One of my personal pet peeves is not too big of a deal, but I don't like visible lasers. I like IR lasers.
Yeah.
But it's not too big of a deal. It is all manual controls back here.
Yep.
So there's no there's no WSD controls. There's no remote little RC controller. So.
Yep. Very manual, but that does lend itself to. From a fictionalized or an abstracted cost perspective, very low cost.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, we'll quickly take a look at this last one, and more of what we've seen. I think this is the infantry fighting vehicle version. Is that right?
This is the bulk carrier.
That's the bulk carrier. Okay, gotcha. That's right. The first one was the IFV. A little tricky to get in.
Yeah,
I'm definitely getting better at it.
Yeah, the front side is the same as the previous, as one of the strengths of this vehicle is that it is very modular, so it has the same chassis, same engine, same front compartment, same weapon.
That's a great point. And and right off the bat, this thing's heavy. Let's see if we can.
It is heavy. We have a fire extinguisher.
Is there a fire extinguisher? Will we burn to death? I think we would be.
Right there by the driver. I see it. I got it.
Okay. I can't get out. I think I've got player damage off, but that would have been some deep burns there.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot this vehicle is the one that has the de-flipping mechanism.
I didn't notice that.
Which we could use on the. We could maybe try to recover the IFV with that. Okay, I think the fire's out.
It looks like we're back in action. See, there's one little piece of damage left, but I don't think that's critical.
Yeah, and to touch on more of the features of the bulk fuel carrier, the system has about 12,000 liters, 12.2 thousand liters.
Okay.
So for a very compact design, that's actually pretty good coverage. I think I took a look on the inside, and it uses a lot of blank microcontroller blocks to squeeze out a little bit more total fuel volume for the walls instead of using regular blocks.
Interesting. Okay, gotcha. I didn't realize
it doesn't have a unified pump control. It has one pump hose port for out and one pump hose port for in. So instead of having a single port to plug in and control, it uses two different ones, which is simpler, which could work if I guess you're daisy chaining them. Like if you're going to, for some reason, daisy chain a bunch of vehicles together, you can pump through them. But other than that, it is a much more simplistic design than using any kind of like pipe network with valves.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Maybe a little less elegant in use, but from a manufacturer standpoint or cost building standpoint, very simple. Let me pop into this cannon real fast, and you've had a chance to really play with this yet.
Let's see if the D-flipper works.
It's the one that has the camera feeds. Crows. Let's see, radio. I believe one of them, maybe all of them have these. Maybe it's not this variant. The others have like a toggleable camera feed side monitors, which are kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Toggle crows.
Yeah, it seems like unfortunately the D-flipper doesn't have quite the reach to get this vehicle off of its back.
One interesting note with this cannon is the reduced fire rate. I wonder if that was deliberate to slow down the recoil.
It could be. It's also, if I was to determine a reason, you're also rolling into water, by the way. It's also possible that if it has a limited ammunition amount, and it doesn't look like it can be reloaded from the inside, so it could be a reduced fire rate so that it's more conservative on its ammo supply.
That is a good point. Now, out of curiosity, I'm going to pull this into the water. I see that it's got somewhat high, what look like air intakes. So even though it's not amphibious, this thing can certainly traverse some fairly deep water.
Mm.
Though it is flowing into the the cabin.
Oh, it's possible that the access hatch. I just opened the access hatch to the rear port is open. So let me. Okay, I got it closed for you. There you go.
Let's see. I'll spin it back around, and then this might be the one that you can pop the module off, and something's happening. I wonder if our logic hit. That's reversed. There we go. One. I wonder if our logic hits did anything else. Let me repair that though. It might just be that it ingested some water. Okay, it probably won't go that deep. But it is airtight on the inside, so I'll give it that.
Yeah, the forward crew compartment is. I know the modules are not. Although the infantry module might be watertight. I think it had a double door system. I can't remember, but it is obviously not intended to be amphibious, as far as I can tell. So
definitely
not really counting against it at all for its sinking.
No, not one bit. Here, I'm curious if I can. Let's see if I turn that. Okay, let me see if I can. I definitely am gonna die here. I was trying to disconnect. It's somehow still powered, engine-wise. We're doing it. We're doing it. Where's it getting its air from? Is it pulling from the crew compartment?
I don't know.
It's
maybe
underwater.
I just saw a bunch of water pouring out the back port.
That was impressive. I'm not sure how its engines were still running, but it powered itself right out of that.
Well, this gives us a good view of the base, like the base chassis without a module.
Yeah, and with that module off, especially the fuel module, this thing's quite nimble and lightweight. Talking about how it's probably the smallest of the bunch, the lightest of the bunch. Just draining some water out of there. I haven't checked, but I wonder what its engine configuration is actually. Let's park it for a second, take a look. If it also
hopefully,
one of those exotic. Hopefully it doesn't flip around like yours. Yeah. Oh. Okay, we made it. Maybe.
All right, so I see pumps, so it's electrically supercharged, maybe, or that looks like a.
Maybe it's a coolant pump.
Yeah, that could be a coolant pump, in fact.
Yeah, engine coolant.
Oh, that looks like a, there's a fire suppression system up there.
Oh, that's right. I want to note that.
There's a water tank.
It's got the fire suppression system switch in the inside.
Yeah, it's got two nozzles. There's no pump for it, so I guess it's gravity fed. Which I mean, if it works, it works.
Yeah. Really nice addition. I certainly didn't put anything like that on mine.
Yeah, I did not either. My engine compartment actually is not even accessible. Yeah, I like it. We got buzzers in there as well, which I guess is the horn.
Oh, yep, nice catch. All right, I think it's time to move on to the next.
All right.
Last up, which will round off, I guess our official contestants, our non-judge contestants, will be this Lynx vehicle. Let me load this. It might take a little bit longer. This is the. Oh, you know what? Actually, let me keep forgetting to clean up these others. Let's reload. Oop, not that one. Let's reload the Lynx. I'm actually gonna take a cycle of the recording. Here we go. Okay. I'm almost. Let's see if there's a. Since I'm hurt, there might be a well-located. Here we go. Heal kit. Perfect. All right. So this is the Lynx 8x8 by Derpy Donut. He submitted an IFV, Recon, and Troop Carrier package. Clearly tons of work have gone into this. This thing looks awesome. I know this isn't about judging the art or the aesthetics, but you know, going the extra mile and really, you know, putting in the effort of making it pretty, I think is a cool.
Yeah, there very clearly a lot of detailing work has gone into the aesthetics. It looks pretty fantastic.
Has a very easy to use automatic transmission. Just WS to go forward and backward. No input seems to stop it. There's a parking brake, I believe, too. Let's see. Yep, handbrake. Yeah, super easy to use. Of the lot we look like, I would say this is probably the most feature-rich, but also probably the most expensive from a, you know, systems standpoint.
Yeah, it has a good. I like the back ramp. It's got the little extra step on it, so that you know it gives you a little bit extra clearance to get inside. It's got a little window, very nice. It's kind of a cramped crew compartment, but you know it seats plenty of people.
Yeah, it is cramped, but it's they managed to squeeze it all in.
One thing I find a particularly interesting design choice, and you'd have to kind of look at all the different versions from this set, is that on the other versions, it seemed like a lot of the main systems were operated by the console in the back, whereas in this one, the main system, being the turret, is operated by the commander seat, and the console in the back operates the smaller camera. I mean, it's just a small little thing I noticed, but it's not really a big deal.
No, it's a good catch. I mean, it does lend itself to the question of you know, reconfigurability or modularity. You know, what choices you have to make to reconfigure to fit that role.
Yeah, it has a very good stabilization system for the gun. It's a single plane stabilizer, so it stabilizes the gun direction, but not the elevation of the gun. But it is yeah, really, really cool fire control system. Really, really smooth. It locks, you know, it locks its direction perfectly. I'll jump in the driver's seat if you want to see it.
Yeah, this thing. I mean, of the four we've looked at, this has an awesome fire control system. A lot of work has been put into making this, you know, feel smooth and easy to use, and really just maintain its aim on target regardless of the vehicle's motion. I mean, it's impressive how well it stabilizes.
Yeah, it's almost certainly, I think, using, you know, at least a PID controller for that. I do notice that when the driver hatch is open, like I just opened it now, because it does have a turnout capability, so I can let me see if I remember how to do that. I think it has a turnout capability. Yeah, there we go. Raise seat. Okay, so I can raise my seat up, but now the driver's open hatch kind of interferes with the turret and the gun a little bit.
Yep.
Obviously, I mean, if you're in a combat situation using a gun, you probably don't want your driver sticking his head out anyways.
Sure.
But it's just something I noticed. It's one of the downsides to using the, you know, the pop open or like the swing open hatches instead of the sliding hatches.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of usability in the controls here. I love the indication of zoom. It's very clever and clean. The progressive zoom feels really nice. It doesn't like snap to a million, you know, miles away. It really kind of, you know, gives you what you're expecting. And then you having that scrolling degrees, I think, up top. That's really nice. I mean, just really a clean setup.
Yeah, he obviously knows what he's doing with this system, for sure. I see that not only does it have an automatic transmission, but it has an automatic reverse, so if you just push S, it'll switch into reverse and start going back.
Yeah, super clean. I mean, usability is totally there. I think just, you know, strictly from a fire control standpoint, I feel like this is probably the most combat ready or combat capable of the lot.
Mm. It also has chaff dispensers, which it looks like it has an automatic dispensing system. So presumably, once that's enabled, if you were to get a radar ping on there, I'm sure there's a radar detector on the system somewhere. And once it detects a radar signature, it'll probably automatically dispense chaff, which is quite nice.
It's a soft kill system. I'd love to know more about what that's doing. I haven't dived into the logic on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how his soft... I don't know if the automatic chaff dispenser is what he's considering the soft kill, or whether he has some kind of, I don't know, link jammer or something. Yep. But it's possible that his soft kill is his chaff dispenser. I don't know whether, I guess that'd be considered a soft kill system or not, but nonetheless, very nice. It's, you know, that extra little cherry on top of being a combat vehicle.
One thing I don't know if I remember is whether it's, I guess we wouldn't be able to test it here, whether the ballistic drop is accounted for in the aim. I don't think it is. I think you just have to know.
Yeah, so that's actually a question I had about the system, because it has a laser rangefinder on the turret. You can see it in third person. It has a range readout on the display in like the bottom left corner, but I don't know how to fire the laser. I don't know how to actually engage the laser rangefinder.
Oh, you know what? Let's spawn something and try. I think I might have managed to figure that out. I don't remember for sure, but if I pop something in, I think we're at the. Let's see. I'm gonna throw a target downrange. We're gonna see if we can play with that. So I want to say that I did have some success in, here, we'll just spawn this, halfway across the runway here. Let's see if that...
He also has a remote machine gun mount that I can access in the back here, so I'm actually, you know, able to supply a little bit of extra machine gun power.
This thing is well armed, and you know, I'm wondering how the coaxial turret to the machine gun is fired. I don't know if I saw a switch system or something. EPS. Let's see. That's infrared.
There are maybe undocumented hotkeys for that seat. I'm not sure.
So stabilization. I want to say, was it? Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I think some hotkeys. I think. System on off. Master arm. I swear this is one I got to work before. I'm not so sure. So I had a note that said. Figure out the radar, but then I went back and shoot. Well, I'm almost positive it's in there. I want to say this is one of those examples where having documentation is critical for using its more complex systems.
Yeah. I got the roof-mounted machine gun working.
I mean, I do love that you can have, 3 crew in here, and they all have an important role, and all have some combat or action-related role. Stability. Listens. Any of those keys? Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, we're out. Right.
Yeah, there is a rooftop loading hatch and another, at least 2 crates of ammo. Oh, sorry, it looks like 4 crates of ammo in here of heavy ammo.
Definitely an important feature to be able to reload from inside.
Yeah, I didn't actually. There is an external reloading hatch which I just used. So I re-upped, or I put 10 more rounds in the gun, but I don't think the turret has access from down here.
Maybe one of the largest detriments of this vehicle that we haven't talked about is the engine logic. So we've been sitting here talking for a little bit, and it's already burned through over 100 units of fuel just idling. It idles at a pretty high RPM, and probably doesn't need to. I mean, maybe from an electronics perspective, it's generating, some electricity, but this seems to be a little high. It's really sucking through. I feel like we might not even have 10 or 15 minutes of idle time if we had to keep the engine running.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe one thing, just it's such a clean and well thought out vehicle, having that additional engine idle logic to sip fuel while you're standing still, or even a hybrid setup that runs on battery and only starts the engine up when you need that extra battery power, would I think lend itself to greater endurance and loiter.
Yeah, but I think this vehicle, if I could say anything about it, it's that it's definitely fully featured.
Absolutely.
It has escape hatches all over the place. It has equipment, just about any kind of equipment you can think of everywhere. It's got radios. It's got multiple turrets, multiple cameras.
Yeah, incredibly well thought out. Yeah, I love this rear camera. It's like sort of commander's camera, or like just providing any crew back here that additional situational awareness before they bail out or hop out into combat. You're right. Yeah, dismount hatches, and you can really open this sucker up too. I'd take this into combat. out of the lot, this would probably be my choice.
This definitely seems like the most technologically advanced of all of them.
Absolutely, yeah. The highest cost, but also the highest featured, greatest featured. Let's take a quick moment to look over these other variants here and see some of the modularity choices being made.
Yeah, they do tend to wiggle on their own a little bit. I don't think they spawn with their parking brakes enabled, so they kind of slightly move, but...
So this is the one I think we talked about that it has a, unfortunately, disconnected engine seat.
Yeah, the driver's seat is a bit broken. I think the lifting mechanism got deleted in the file, but...
So maybe like the smallest building misstep, but such a critical one.
Yeah, it is a observation vehicle. It's got, really nice, raisable mast, which has radars on it. It's got GPS system.
And, for a variant, all well integrated, all very clean and deliberate. Really
Yeah, it also has the, both of these non-IFV versions have their own light autocannon turret. So all of them are armed.
I wonder if this was an add-on map or if this is a custom. It's really beautiful the way it
Yeah. Yeah, all in all, quite nice. It uses the little RC controller, which is a very, very useful tool, a very nice way to build kind of compact, control systems using the little RC controller. It's a bit finicky. It's a little bit less convenient than using like its own dedicated seat to control that, but yeah, definitely works.
Let's pop into this last one here and drive it around a bit and comment on some overland capability.
Yeah, so this one is, I believe, a troop carrier.
Take this nice and slow this time. Oh, and of course it just like leaps into the next gear. Plenty of power, plenty capable, though I think my notes, this has quite a long and low front nose compared to some of the others, which is somewhat prone to getting whacked when you're being a little careless. It does want to haul ass. Really, the gearing, I think, it makes it a little tricky to be delicate with it. So maybe that combination.
Automatic transmissions can be quite hard to tune just right.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we're seeing. Is just that the automatic transmission logic is a little ambitious, and it works fine when you're hauling. Which to all the variants and the platforms you receive. The context of the contest was about traversing the new DLC area, which is mostly flat desert.
Right.
So, not as much of a concern, I suppose, in that respect. But when you break something on this, you break a lot of stuff. It's got a lot of bells and whistles and toys, functionality, and I guess that just lends itself to the complexity. It takes damage, you're knocking out a lot of those systems.
Yeah, that's completely fair, yeah. It is the most complex system in the lineup, which has its benefits and its cons.
Alright, well I think that pretty much rounds off our lot. Overall, the Lynx, super capable, by far the best fire control system of our four, and incredibly attentive from a building perspective on design, on choice of systems and layout. It really does a lot, and it's very, very optimized. I can see this took a long time to create and really kind of take form. What we're not talking about as we go is that we've all spent lots of time playing with these prior to this, so if you're not seeing us take a deliberate amount of time to test the weapon systems and fire and stuff, that's because we already have. It's more of an overview. Let me disappear these. So I think that wraps up our four main contestants, though I think this is the time where we can dive into each other's and sort of trade off.
Yeah, we also prepared a couple vehicles.
It was hard to resist. So let's why don't we spawn yours next, and I'll walk through a little bit of my own critique, and you can share some of your inspiration behind the design.
All right. I just spawned it in, so hopefully it'll come through for you.
Oh no, double spot. Let me clear it.
Oh no.
All right, go for it.
I should have said something.
No, you're all good.
There's a bit of a delay when I try to work on those stations.
All right.
Maybe you should spawn it in. Actually, I can't click on the station anymore.
Oh no, okay. Let me try it. Let's see if I can get it. All right, so this is the AWCV family. Tell me what AWCV stands for.
That is a very military-centric acronym. So it's the Adaptable Combat Wheeled Vehicle.
Gotcha. Nice. First off, super wide, impossible to flip. I did like that. Very fun to drive, bouncy, but fun. Let's pop in to this first one here.
They haven't quite appeared for me yet. So.
Oh, I haven't. Okay, we'll give it a sec. Some things I really like about it: the four-wheel steer. While that would add some abstracted costs and additional linkages and all that, it turns on a dime, and it makes it really fun to traverse over terrain at high speed. It's a little bouncy, but I think it kind of lends itself to the experience. And if you do knock out some of the front linkage, you have plenty of other steering wheels. From a layout internal perspective, I like how you've done this. The back is a pretty spacious crew compartment. I did notice that these ERA are still labeled ERA.
Yeah. I just for
I
simplicity, I just brought in some of the ERA blocks to use as backrests.
I made a note that in the event of a disaster, it painlessly kills the crew instantly.
Yeah, it's the anti-suffer mechanism.
That's right. Pretty cool layout though. Lots of space in the back, rear exiting, which I think from a combat perspective is far superior than say like a middle side exit where you're exposed to that frontal combat before being able to dismount. So great there. Interesting approach from the like the tandem seat. I think is a well used space here. Tandem front and back. Oops, I might have gotten physics clipped outside of this seat here for a sec. Cool layout with the tandem on the left, and then of course the engine on the right.
Yeah, I took a little bit of inspiration of the seating positions of I think like a BMPs where they'll have the commander sitting just behind the driver.
First spin, here we go. We'll dive it off that cliff right there. We close this hatch. Actually, let's take it for a little bit of a bath here. So also amphibious, which I love. Not a requirement at all, but a great feature to have.
Yeah, to simplify the powertrain, because the propeller is run off of the drive shaft, so it's mechanically driven. And so to simplify that, there's no clutch disconnecting it, so it just spins when you drive.
Yep, which has its compromises, but like you said, very simple. Less to repair if there is damage. It just works too. Though there is some parasitic power there. But plenty cable. Might have sucked some water in there. There we go.
Yeah, the tuning for the automatic transmission might not be perfect, but it generally gets the job done. It's not super fast. It's obviously not a speedboat.
Yep, that's okay. That was actually one of my notes too. Is just the automatic transmission logic is hard. I pulled something off the shelf. I just did not want to dive into that. This does rev a little high, and it is a little slow at times, or a little finicky with its gear selection.
Yeah, the intent for the engine was to make the engine as compact as possible so that I can fit more logic into like the nose section. So in order to account for the smaller engine, I just ran it higher in RPM to get the power.
And are you using fins? You must be, right, somewhere?
I am.
Some fins back there.
There is fins just behind the rear axle. They're kind of nestled in there. If you look from the back, you can kind of see some of the two vertical fins, and I have two horizontal fins that help to balance the weight a little bit under power.
Nice, gotcha. Oop, might have goofed us here.
Let's see if it rolls back.
Yeah, well, upright. It looks like it will. That's that's another great like aspect. If you're gonna make it amphibious, you want it to be able to roll upright weighed
Yeah, I
properly.
also I have you might have seen them behind the passenger seating. I have 2 automatic bilge pumps. So
That's
if
what
water
those are.
does get in the vehicle, they'll automatically kick in and pump. And there's 2 of them, both on independent systems with independent water sensors, so that it should be able to. I think they're independent water sensors. So in the event one of them breaks, it should still be able to get water out of the hull.
I love it. I feel like that's a must because you're going to take a hit and you're going to lose some of that water tightness. And,
Or if your driver leaves his hatch open when he jumps in the water.
Certainly that. Yep. Yeah, and in any case, having those bilge pumps really adds to the survivability aspect. Some other great features of this: drivability. While it has a long nose, it's high angled. I don't think I ran into a case where I was really whacking it very often. And this thing is so wide that you're not going to be flipping it. Really, you can drive on quite a embankment and traverse terrain haphazardly, and you're pretty well off. Like, while we talk about some of the other platforms have a high center of gravity or high center of mass, this, on the other hand, has no problem flying over obstacles. I mean, it's pretty low too. I think that's another, having a low aspect has its advantages in combat as well. From a troop carrier standpoint, and that was my bad. All right, let's find your well-placed fire extinguisher instead.
Yeah, I got a couple in the ceiling there.
Oh, nice. Okay. Oh no, I've got a torch. Okay.
Or I got one of them, I should say.
Just my torch. Okay.
We conveniently also rolled into the water a little bit, so a lot of the fire got put out.
Nice. Some other aspects. Here, I'm gonna teleport back to the hangar here, and we'll talk about the next few. Some other aspects I really like: the commander's view is very handy, and being able to toggle between those, especially here with the infantry fighting vehicle. Just having the extra situational awareness is nice. And I love these extra displays. Nice little functionality, a very compact package. Fire control system is excellent. Has a nice smooth zoom. I love these kind of preset zoom levels. The inverse axis it drives me nuts. But
oh yeah, I am an
inverted
player.
Yeah, totally. But just a design choice. I do love the scrolling degrees, and I especially love the turret orientation indicator in the bottom right. That's a huge feature that none of these really have had, to tell you in a very clean and quick way that the direction your turret is pointed relative to the vehicle's orientation.
Yeah, I debated on having a dedicated gunner seat as well as the commander seat with the commander periscope, but I ended up unifying it to avoid having to put another kind of joystick seat in the back. So the commander basically controls both the commander periscope and the gun.
Yeah, I think that works. I mean, they're definitely, I think from, maybe not as much of a Stormworks perspective, but from a, I guess headcanon perspective, you might want to be traversing over terrain with the turret locked in place, facing forward, not bouncing around on a gimbal, and being able to switch between those. I like that there's a spotlight set up. That's nice. Just overall compact, really clean. The windows in the back are kind of a fun element to provide additional situational awareness for any combatants in the back, any crew. Have this nice ammo hatch. We kind of talked about that. The pros and cons of an autoloader versus a more simple hatch mechanism that just you feed up.
Yeah, I debated on building an autoloader system that would feed ammo up to the turret, but I think one of the big design ideals for this system is that as much commonality as possible. So the only real difference between this version and say the anti-tank version is like the remote turret. That's it. Everything else, they have the same number of seats, they have the same seating arrangement. Everything else inside is pretty much identical, apart from the remote turret. So really, it's only the stuff on the roof that changes.
Speaking of the remote turret, really clean fire control system. I think I might have already mentioned. Let me switch between gun periscope toggle. Here we go. So toggling on the gun. That's right, inverted. And really easy to aim. I love the progressive. Oh wait, maybe there isn't. Maybe this. That was my other note. Was that it does get a little touchy fully zoomed in if you want to hit something quite far off.
There is a sensitivity shift on zoom. It might not be aggressive enough though.
Gotcha. Okay. Cabin.
But also, yeah, press 1. It should shoot the laser, and that'll auto range it.
Oh, I love that.
And that will adjust the gun. Sometimes it's not perfect, so you might have to kind of adjust the aim a little bit, but yeah, so it might be a little bit. You're also able to you can shoot the laser and then turn it off again because it's a toggle, and it'll hold that range.
Oh, that is nice. Oh, that's handy. So it is actually using a little bit of auto ranging here.
Yep.
So if I hit something like 400 or 500 meters off, yeah, it definitely is doing some tilting. I see what you mean. I haven't even tried to work a ballistics like calculator myself. Just the nuances of it. It's a lot.
Yeah.
To tune.
Yeah, that version, the version in this is extremely rudimentary. It's not perfect, but given the amount of spread and the full auto capabilities of this, it's good enough.
Yeah, you'll hit your target. Let's see if we can pop. Let's see. Boom. I love it, man. I'm popping the back, or popping this last variant. Oh. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get out of here.
Yeah.
But like you said, very compact, and there's always choices that have to be made between like ingress, egress, and just fitting all the stuff you want to fit in. Very much the same with this one. Just a much bigger toy up top.
Yeah, really the only thing different other than just the obvious turret on top is that it has an extra logic board for the loader system, because it has there's 2 different ammo types. There's HE and AP for the main gun, and if you look to the left from the commander seat, you'll see the reload console, and it's also a toggle for the coax gun.
Oh, nice! I love that coax select. That's oh man, I think I looked right past that. I was like, oh, there's a coax, but I don't know how to turn it on. Interesting. So you can choose. It doesn't cycle between them. You choose one or you choose the other, and it can swap between them.
Yeah, there's just 2 buttons. They're just reload buttons. So you push reload HE to reload the high explosive, and push reload AP to load an armor piercing.
And what is this
and you swipe
load? What is the lock arm? Raised lock arm?
That is so. One of the downsides to the gun on top is it makes it quite top heavy, so the amphibious capabilities can be a bit sketchy. So you need to lock the gun in place. If you press raise lock arm, if you go third person, you'll see the little gun lock raise up.
Oh, yeah.
And then you want to nest the gun in there, and then press lock, and it'll hold the gun in place.
Understood.
To keep it nice and centered.
And will that actually seal the hatch? Or is it more just to prevent the imbalance of flipping in
That's
water?
to prevent imbalance. Yeah, if you go in the water and then you rotate the gun, it'll shift the center of gravity enough to potentially roll over the vehicle in the water.
Okay, gotcha. Well, we need to drive in some water with this. I need to see that in action. I didn't actually expect that this one was amphibious.
Yeah,
capable.
it can. Yeah, it's barely amphibious capable. It's much easier to get into trouble.
I'd imagine, yeah, having such a heavy turret up top. That was one of the reasons I didn't want to get too busy with stuff up top on mine. Was I started to get a little flippy happy in the water. And certainly a debate between land capable versus amphibious capability. Well, when amphibious is not a requirement, right?
Yeah. Let's see if I can gingerly drive into the water.
I mean, overall, extremely capable vehicle, has all the connections and everything, and all the feature sets that I would want out of something like this. And the modularity between the variants is very clean. Very minimal was swapped between them or added. So I think from that perspective, it succeeds very well. Like you're like 20 seats up top too.
Oh yeah, rooftop seating.
You take a lot to come. Oh no!
All right, let's let it stabilize.
Good
Sometimes you need to give it a little bit of power and use the fins to kind of keep it upright. But
yeah, it's got those extra pumps.
Yeah.
Hey, it does it. I mean, it totally works. Now
if you unlock the gun,
let's see.
I think the wind is like blowing the vehicle really hard or something. Oh no! Oh no!
I don't know if we're uprighting from this. Hey, this is a perfect time to showcase your escape hatch, though.
Yes. Yep.
Uh-oh. If we can escape through the escape hatch. There we go.
Yeah, so if you're going to use amphibious capabilities of this, you want to only calm seas, ideally not very deep waters.
But it's still watertight, which, that was a challenge I overcame in a different way on mine, but it was just as tricky as if you have to have a way to feed ammo through that hole. How do you go about doing that? Awesome, man. Well, again, thank you so much for joining in the competition and putting the effort in. I think this is an awesome addition to the number of platforms we received, and I could just as easily see this competing pretty strongly in the lot. I wanted to, I did cook up some scores for yours, and we'll show those at the very end for everyone's, but it performed very well.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, let's load my set last. This is the Mongoose X. I was going for a dystopian future theme.
Yeah, as soon as it loads in, I'll see it. But I know it's a very sci-fi looking vehicle, I think. Or not very sci-fi, but it looks like a kind of future vehicle.
Yeah, I was kind of going for that. I can see one of them is gradually drifting away.
Yeah, I think the wind or something is pushing vehicles.
I've got everything turned down and off. I wonder if it just it could be it could easily be a sort of just a bug due to their creative suspension system.
It could be.
Are they loaded in for you yet?
Yep, they're in. Yep.
Gotcha. So you take it away. Yeah. Go ahead, and I'm curious.
Yeah. So I mean, very cool looking vehicles. They ride really hard. They're tall. They're very, very tall. I know you and I a while ago both mentioned we were doing eight-wheeled vehicles, and just looking at the blueprints, you can kind of see I went with a wide low stance, and you went with a much narrower taller stance, because there is the the challenge of fitting wheels, because wheels are kind of difficult to put onto a vehicle.
Yep.
But
especially.
Yeah. So you obviously have a very interesting setup there. Which version is this? This is the.
I think this is the infantry fighting vehicle.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So there is a ladder to get up onto the roof.
Yep.
Which is nice. You got two hatches up front, roof hatches. I noticed they don't sit immediately above the seats, but they're both access into like the crew compartment.
Yep. And that was certainly a compromise because of the extreme slope on that front. Which, my headcanon was like, maybe you have less armor, and it's the slope is buying you back some of that penetration thickness,
Right. Yeah, definitely. I really like, especially how you have like a center driving position, like with a big display. Like it's, when you're sitting in the driver's seat, it's almost like, you're just seeing straight through the front of the vehicle because of how big this display is.
Tried my best to cram in some large, displays. Thinking that I really wanted to try and reduce this to a two-man crew. I I could never see more than 2 players getting on multiplayer at once. So
Right.
they wanted it to be like Stormworks compatible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely, I think, does that. Is it? What is the? What's the powertrain? Is it? Does it have an electric drive, or is it?
It's automatic transmission. It's all like power, I guess, or whatever the Stormworks term was. Direct shaft,
Gotcha.
direct drive.
It's all mechanically driven.
All mechanically driven.
Nice. It's extremely smooth.
Including the propellers in the back are mechanically driven as well, and
Nice.
do use that like sort of torque steering. I'll shut our hatch there. I had a creative. I felt a creative approach to being able to auto reload while keeping it sealed. I covered up the hatch and buried a 200 drum magazine in this like side unit, I guess you could call it.
Right. Okay.
That raises and lowers to the gun underneath.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, that's actually really clever. I like that.
So it will fill with water if we dunk it, but then it has a pump, both a cabin pump and a draining pump, air bilge pump in that contained ammo unit.
Oh, that makes sense. I know. Yeah, because it does have a turret ring, which the turret rings function as it's a volume separator, but it does let water through. You know, like an open hatch.
Yep. Now, one thing I didn't do, because I didn't have any kind of progressive sensitivity, so this thing's like virtually impossible to aim if you're not using the auto aim radar system.
Gotcha. Yeah, you do have a radar system. Let's see. Yeah, let's see if we can get into the water here.
And while amphibious capability wasn't a large aspect of this, I wanted it to be able to operate, you know, pretty cleanly in the water and pretty quickly too.
Yeah, yeah, it's got some good speed.
It uses both fins and torque steering.
Nice. Yeah, this is quick. Let's see if I can do a real hard turn here. See if I can get it close to flipping over. No, it's pretty stable.
It should be hard to flip. I've got it. The center of mass is pretty low, so it does want to upright even if it gets flipped around. What else? It uses a distance sensor to look at its depth in the water. As it gets closer to land, it'll start to push more torque toward the wheels.
Ah, I see. That is very, very clever.
So you can automatically jump up on land and down again. I don't know if it can handle the 90 bank. But, the one probably note to fix would be the gearing is pretty slow in reverse in the water. I don't have it change gears or anything. I probably could have done something like that. What else? What are some other toys? It uses 2 engines, 2 of the small engines crammed very far up front.
Oh yeah. I just see that. For some reason, it didn't even click in my head that there's 2 engines sitting right there.
So you do get a little bit of redundancy there if one gets knocked out, but if you take a frontal hit, you are out of luck. It's gonna knock out everything except the gun. I kept all the logic in the gun toward the back, so you can still fire back, but you'll be dead in the water.
Yeah, I think that's an advantage over my system. I definitely crammed. I wanted to keep my crew compartment super empty, so I crammed all my logic up front, which is not great for, surviving a hit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just pros and cons. Like you have, you end up with more crew space, or more, in your case, much denser package than this. This isn't the big target. Like it sits off the ground quite far, but that does buy quite a bit of space on the inside.
Yeah, I see you went with a light autocannon, which I'm a big fan of the light autocannon for like an infantry vehicle. I find the kind of heavy autocannon to be a bit too bulky.
So the 1 and 2 keys up front shift to the different drives. But like I mentioned before, it's quite slow in the water in reverse since it's barely spinning those wheels.
Yeah, but at least it's there.
I can't take any credit for the fire control system. That's been pulled off the shelf. In fact, a lot's been pulled off the shelf. This was more of a exercise in systems integration than it was actually developing those systems.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just having a lot of fun driving around in the water here.
Yeah, during testing, I was like turning on the combat DLC and just driving it out to knock out warships.
Nice. Yeah, I need to do a bit more fire exercises with mine. So yeah, how many seats does this? You said this is the IFV.
This is the IFV. Let's see, we've got. I think I just barely hit the requirements. 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 plus driver and gunner. And this is really the one that I spent the most attention on. Oh, I've got the field carrier. Not all the logic is there. I wouldn't if you actually try to pump fuel, it's not going to do it. I got all the, I got it assembled to a point, and I was like, eh. And I forget I don't remember what my last variant was. Let me see if I can showcase some of the targeting here. Let's see if I can auto aim on this.
It's hill. I'm just sliding on it. Sorry.
Oh,
this airbase is not the best for.
No, it's almost impossible to get up on this side, I'm sure. Let's give it some major air. I might be trapped.
I might have gone too far. Well, we can go take a look at the next version if you'd
Let's
like.
hop back and take a look at what's left. What is left? What did I even do? Oh yeah, I have my lazy other submissions.
Yeah, one of them went for a bit of a.
These are a little incomplete for sure. Let's see.
So this is the.
This would have been the Expeditionary Command Post.
Right. Okay.
Certainly enough room to do it in here, but you can see I was beginning an approach and then just ran short of time.
Yeah, I do like the raised roof. Obviously, gives plenty of vertical space. Characters can stand all the way up, as opposed to having to kind of crouch through. Obviously, tons of space.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be hard to justify not having this much space with as much as tall as this vehicle is.
Yeah, I mean, driving system still the same, so we got the same dual engine setup, same big screen. I really do like the big screen. There's I generally use like small kind of porthole type little periscope looking displays, but there's something really nice and satisfying about having these huge displays. They give super clear view of everything. This one is also amphibious.
Yes, I think all with the exception of the fuel carrier. Though I was able to pack in, I think something like, I want to say like 14 or 16,000 units into that sucker without expanding it. It does have an interesting battery clutch mechanism, so it uses a PID with some logic to only parasitically draw as much power as it needs to charge the battery. So if your battery is mostly full, it'll declutch and lay off that drain.
Yeah, that is something that's especially nice with the modular engines with the little alternators because they have built-in clutches. But yeah, having the properly intelligently controlled charging system is a very nice feature that not a lot of people usually think about when they're designing. They just kind of slap on a generator and that's that. But very, very nice. So you want to talk about how this suspension system works?
My bespoke janky suspension. Here, let's grab the. Okay, the fuel carrier's on fire. Let's kill it and respawn real fast. And I'll talk to the one that we've actually, because I really only put effort into the infantry fighting vehicle knowing that they weren't really going to be judged all
Right.
that much. Let me respawn that. Or, you know what? In fact, screw it. We'll respawn the hottest and latest version with a whole new fire control system built in, and just kind of talk about that. So the suspension, I didn't want to eat up all that crew compartment with springs and suspension. So instead, I've got using a handful of hinges, and I don't even think they're tied to PIDs. I think I just have tuned the how much force they apply and how quickly they apply it to kind of get that result I was looking for. So extremely compact.
Yeah, and it allows you to build basically the whole system above the wheels and above the suspension, as opposed to having to try to integrate the suspension into the hull.
Yeah, it becomes much more of like that skateboard chassis almost. The only downside, of course, is you don't have independent suspension. It's kind of a per axle suspension, so
right.
And you don't have as much control over like dampening effects and all of that, which I'm sure you could get if you tied it to more of a PID setup, but without, it's just simplistic.
Yeah, it's quite nice. It's that's one of the big, I think I'd mentioned it, that's one of the big challenges when designing the vehicles, is whether you want to use the suspended wheels or not suspended wheels, because the non-suspended wheels are like give you higher output power, and they obviously can ride lower. You can get a better control over like your actual ride height, and so this is like a really good middle ground area where you're getting the advantages of the non-suspended wheels, but also getting some suspension mechanism built in.
This particular unit, I guess this updated unit, has this does have a radar lock, and it does have a ballistic computer built in. So if we
that's very cool.
Locked in, we should be able to get some. I haven't tested it much in motion, but it should have some. I've got an OR button set up to do some firing from the.
Oh, so you can fire from the driver's seat. That's pretty nice.
Just in case you just really want to solo it. But yeah, that's all.
This could almost double as an anti-aircraft vehicle with the radar-directed gun.
I wish. I've done some testing. You can shoot down helicopters like opportunistically, but it has a hell of a time with anything too much faster than that.
Gotcha.
It does have that reload system, so here, I'll let you play around with firing and once I start the drive.
Yeah, let's have it run it all the way down and see what happens when it reloads.
It's not an automatic reload, but if you hit that button, it should slew the turret
I see. Nice.
to the front, and ideally, did I get jammed?
Let me just make sure let me turn off the radar. I don't know if the radar is interfering with it. Oh, you know what? I think I accidentally held it down instead of pushing it. That was user error.
Good. I have very poor to zero documentation, so user error is inevitable.
Let's see. Is it back up and running?
The one key is a hidden addition that locks and unlocks the ballistic calculator aspect.
Gotcha.
I might have to untoggle that, but it should be back in action.
Let's see.
Fine-tuning these fire control systems though, it's just total hell.
Yeah, so it's working. Nice. I like it. I'm always a little bit kind of on the fence about radar-directed guns. But yeah, this is like such a smooth integration because you just like aim, it locks it up, and then it kind of stays on it.
I can't take credit for this one either, though the integration. I think this was Penny's fire control system, but in this case, it was a remote site paired with a remote turret, and combined them into a single turret system. So some additional logic and stuff there to integrate them, but I blew the time frame with this, so I'm not sure if this quite counts. Well, I think
still.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's still good. Integrating, third-party stuff is also really, really important. I love one of the great things about Stormworks building system is, you don't have to be an engine builder and a gun builder and a chassis builder in order to make cool stuff. You can grab some nice systems off the workshop and build with them.
Yeah, absolutely, and I wanted that to be possible for this competition, being able to pick and choose and make it more of like an integrations challenge and platform rather than having to custom build every single logic and component. Oh man, we're really
some good air there.
catching a surprising amount of air here. What's going on? Nice. Just like extra silly like dumbfire rockets.
Yeah.
Well, I think that concludes all of our judging. I'll see what I can edit this down into, but I feel like it's gonna be like an hour.
Yeah. I mean, that was fun though. That was.
Yeah, I think everyone's put in so much effort into these that it really shows. Oh, let's see if it look at that.
Look at that. It's a boat on land.
It's definitely boat sized. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Majir, for joining us and for helping out with this. Thank you all for participating and lending your time and effort into all these awesome innovative solutions for this challenge. We'll see if we cook up another challenge. I think it's sort of a, maybe I'll hand off the torch to someone with more time if someone else has a great idea. Else I might opportunistically host one here and there.
Yeah, you can also do like a almost like a team challenge where one person builds a chassis, one person builds a gun, one person builds something, and try to staple them all together.
Oh, that'd
so
be
a kind of
fun.
horrible chimera comes out.
Like a handoff challenge. It's like it's almost like operator with Stormworks.
Yeah.
Seeing what you get, what kind of like piece of shit Frankenstein situation you get handed off, and have to work with that.
Yeah.
That almost might lend itself to like a more realistic, like military procurement process,
Yeah.
Having to deal with all this legacy equipment and have to do that. One thought I did have for a future challenge that might be fun is I was thinking about providing a drivetrain or providing a system that is mandatory for the build, so you have to integrate it into your design or work with limitations somehow. I guess it just depends on, we've got different interests on our server. Some folks are all about the engineering and integration and sort of systems and fine-tuning. Others are more about the results, like seeing stuff blow up, hitting the target. We've got the whole missile side of our subreddit, or of our for our Discord. That's more about the finesse of aiming and targeting ballistics. And
yeah, the missile guys are their own breed on the subreddit. I mean, sorry, on the Discord.
Yeah, and so I think maybe doing a competition where clearly there was fuss and frustration around not having XML, so I might open that up and do like more of an unlimited challenge, where you can go totally ham and just see what people can come up with.
One cool competition that'd be very military centric would be we take a legacy system. We take a truck and we say, all right, now each of you come up with an upgrade package for this truck.
Oh, I would love that.
So the less invasive, the better. So like the less expensive, right? Like you come up with your own upgrade package. You want the truck to have twice the range, or like be able to double the fuel capacity, increase its top speed, give it a weapon system, and like increase its towing capacity. You just basically give it like, here's the specs we want, here's the starting platform. Now whoever can get to those specs.
I'm definitely more of the systems guy. It sounds like you are too, and that sounds like right up my alley. Oh, we've hopelessly flipped this. All right, well, I think that's a good time to wrap up. Thank you all again, and maybe we'll catch you for the next one. Alrighty, folks. Well, that was our 2 hours of commentary going through these vehicles. Thank you so much for your submissions, and big shout out to Majir for spending the time with me, not only to go over them live for a couple hours, but also to take home this homework of grading all these behind the scenes, so we had something to chat about. So thank you again for Majir. Let's dive into these scores real fast. I'll try to keep this short. So we'll just talk about the high-level aspects. You can take away what you want from the behind-the-scenes, sort of behind-the-curtains view of the spreadsheet that we're using to judge. I think keeping it high level is a little bit better, but I know some of you are going to want those hard-hitting scores, so let's dive in. Commonality, function, and cost were the three major aspects of this competition. I'll just talk about the high level or the averages here. Let's start with IDX's Aztec Advantage 2. So commonality, 8.33. Pretty outstanding. I love the modular aspect, being able to disconnect and reconnect those decks on the back. Though in this case, they were somewhat a large component of the vehicle size. So it took a little bit of a commonality reduction there, but overall very good. Function. This is where the Aztec Advantage 2 had a little bit of trouble. Now, keep in mind, in this case, 5 is a decent performing, requirements hitting role or vehicle. So 5.4 is above hitting the requirements, but just barely. It does the job, but doesn't do more than it has to. Let's dive down into cost. Now, cost, same thing. So better than expected, but not particularly inexpensive in all respects. I think where cost really was hit here was just the engine being pretty overkill and overbuilt. Incredible amounts of power, but adding a lot of additional costs. I think had it used a much more economical engine solution, maybe even a slightly underpowered one, it might have scored out on top in this respect. But the Aztec Advantage 2 as a whole achieved an aggregate score of 19.67. That's pretty good. Let's go to the top, and we'll pop over to Derpy Donuts Lynx. So the Lynx scored a commonality score of 8.67, so a little bit higher. Very good. From a function standpoint, 6.14. So a good deal better than average in the next tier up. This had a great fire control system, but of course this is taking a look at the total picture, and there are some aspects there. Let's just dive right down to keep this brief. Cost, 5.08. One of the most expensive of the lot. A lot of systems, very electronics heavy, but didn't break the bank. I think it kind of balanced that out with a respectable engine and drivetrain complexity and a very compact size overall. So 5.08 for a total score of 19.89. Moving down the list. Phil's boxer type modular brick BAMB. A extremely high commonality in this case, using that modular package swapping or mission swapping back section. In this case, Phil's boxer did extremely well being able to swap a fairly dense back component while keeping the rest of the package identical. So very high score from the commonality standpoint. Function, kind of middle of the road between the two others that we just looked at. It serves its role well, but doesn't exceed beyond that by a whole ton. But it does a good job. I think had it had a little bit of an improved fire control system, maybe more work on the ammo and reloading front, I think that could have kicked up a little bit. But overall, very good. Diving down into cost. Pretty conscious of cost across the boards. Good scores. Very common, leading to good use of cost. Pretty compact from a use of components standpoint. Was somewhat small and compact. And then from a utility and armament standpoint, didn't go crazy there. So it all kept everything very respectable for a total score of 20.61. Moving on to Petrie's stretchable, lightly armored platform, the Slap. The Slap definitely took a different approach, very interesting, but of course that added a lot of commonality reductions, being that the vehicle had to grow and shrink depending on its role. So not one platform could perform that role. It had to kind of use that accordion feature, which meant I guess, or would need in the reality of our abstracted, from the game sense into reality, some kind of different assembly line for each of those. It might not be so easy as strapping on an extra axle set. Maybe in some respects, but that definitely took some cost considerations there. Down into cost. Actually pretty good. I think middle of the road from a cost standpoint. It did use a little bit more of a structure. There was more materials there as you get bigger in those variant sizes, but kept it pretty down to earth from an electronics and system standpoint. Very reasonable from an armament or utility standpoint, leading us to a score of 17.53. So, drum roll, you've already seen it. The winner of the contest is Phil with his boxer-type modular brick. Thank you so much, Phil. I have no prizes to give out. You get a gold star, though. You won our first design contest that we've hosted. All of the submissions were so close. They all had their pros and cons. I hate distilling it down into just raw numbers because if you actually put these things to use, I'm sure they would show their strengths and weaknesses even more so than our brief testing of each. But thank you all for your awesome submissions. We appreciate your interactivity, and if you have enjoyed this, please hit us up and let the admins know. Voice your comments and stuff. I'm sure we'll be chatting about this for after the fact and what scores we've used and our testing methodologies. But hey, that's fun commentary, and definitely do talk about that. I would love to host something like this again, time willing, and would be happy to hand off the torch to other folks that are looking to put on a contest. So again, thank you for watching and checking us out. We are the Stormworks Engineering Discord server. If you're stumbling across us on YouTube and you want to dive into Stormworks stuff at a spreadsheet level and jump into those engineering contests and chat with folks that are really advanced players, hit us up, join us. We'd love to have you. We've got an awesome community. Thank you, folks. Goodbye.